It's been a while. I've been MIA, and I'm back for another LenTalk, and so glad that you've stuck with me. I have no excuse other than, well, I did break my wrist here, and that's a long story. I did it teaching. Can you believe it? I'm teaching doctoral students at Westcott House and Cambridge University, and well, I'll just leave it at that. I've been working on manuscripts. I have this Gridiron Gospel book coming out, When Faith Moves Chains, and a playbook to go with it. I've got an Advent devotional that's coming out. This should all be done in the next couple of weeks. And I've been hard at work, as many of you know, on my Imagination of Jesus book. And that should be out later this year. I've got a book of devotions that my wife and I have been working on for Pentecost next year, a Pentecost devotional book. There's not many of those around. So there's 50 devotionals for every day of Pentecost. So my MIA has not been that I've just been lollygagging around, although I am now. I'm in the Blue Ridge Mountains, just enjoying this incredible, what I call Vulpine Ridge. But I've missed you, and I want to be back with you. And I feel this burden to talk about politics in the church. And so I've crafted something, and I'm going to I've commissioned somebody to do some infographics. I'm going to supply those too with this LenTalk, and so that you can use it if you find any of this useful in your own life, in your own ministry. But I really want to address kind of once and for all my views on the church and politics. I'm calling it Polyticks, Polyticks, and the politics of the Lamb. Polyticks, Polyticks, and the politics of the Lamb. The other reason why I'm doing this, we're right in the middle of July here, almost the middle of summer, and we're told that the summer of 2025 is a particularly, for whatever reason, lethal summer of ticks. With some areas that are being told you can expect extreme risk infestations. And while I was here, I actually got bit by a tick. And so I was inspired and motivated to meditate on Polyticks and the politics of the Lamb, partly because I'm still itching where that bite took place. They may appear small and harmless, but the creep that infiltrates the blood soon starts to affect and can affect the limbs, the muscles, the bones, and the brains. Ticks can cause debilitating diseases. I knew somebody who was a physician that had an IV hooked up for an entire year. So as he made rounds with his patients, he had to have this IV because he had Lyme disease. And just ask anybody with Lyme disease what the power of a tick. And what I want to make the case for is that the bite of the tick can cause a similar phenomenon for the body we call the church. In fact, I would go so far as to say that one little bite and the creep begins. Now, you can't escape politics. To opt out is not an escape, even. Because to exist is to engage with the political. You can't escape it. And if you say, well, I'm going to opt out of it, that's a silent declaration, a political act in and of itself. Because we are inextricably woven into the fabric of human governance. But true agency lies where politics shapes us. And that's what I want to talk about in this LenTalk. The chasm is vast between being infected by polyticks, Polyticks, that parasitic craving for power over others, and being kind of indwelt by the radiant politics of the kingdom, Politicks, which is a love relentlessly poured out for others. Now, it's a very different understanding of politics. And so I want to argue that the true peril is not in it for the church, is not in its political engagement, but its profound misdirection, having embraced the bite of the former politics rather than the embrace of the latter politics. Now, I do this not just because I'm having fun here, but our language once hinted at the danger of politics through its very spelling. Before Politic became the sanitized word we know today, it carried within it very letters a more honest confession. Politic, Politic, is the original spelling. And so in that extra letter, Politic, that lingering K that we've now dropped, but I'm trying to bring back, lies a prophetic warning our ancestors understood, but we have forgotten. So politics, Politicks, or politics, Politicks, the bite is the same. Strip away the rhetoric, the noble speeches, the promises of change, and what remains? A writhing mass of bloodsuckers that attach themselves to anything with a pulse. They burrow deep beneath the skin of communities, beneath the flesh of faith itself, draining not just blood, but something far more precious, the very breath of the divine, from those that they infest. And this is what I see happening to some of my friends, my former students. They've been infected by Polyticks. To understand the church's misstep, we must first see its true identity apart from the city's politics. Ecclesia, the church, the called out one, springs from ek, out, and kaleo, Kaleo, to call. It's the community of the called, the community of the summoned, those who have heard their names whispered on the wind of the Spirit and have left everything to follow that voice into the wild adventure of faith. But polis, Polis, the city, the realm of Politica, concerns itself only with the affairs of the city, municipal matters, temporal concerns, the management of earthly kingdoms. You see the chasm that yawns between them. One is a calling out, the other is a settling in. One is about exodus, the other is about establishment. One dances to heaven's rhythms, the other marches to the drumbeat of human ambition. And yet, even this chasm does not absolve us from engagement. Politics, at its most basic, is about how people order their lives together. And Jesus entered the polis not to baptize its systems or to train politicians, but to redeem its people. His was not a withdrawal from civic life, but a reimagining of civic life. He walked into cities, he healed in marketplaces, he dined with tax agents. He stood trial before governors, not to endorse Caesar, but to unveil a new kingdom. The tragedy of our time is not that the church has abandoned politics, but that it has confused the two, politics with politics. We have forgotten that we are called to love our cities with a love of Ecclesia, not to become enslaved by the affairs of Politica. We are meant to be salt and light, not campaign managers for earthly kingdoms. Jesus did not say, I'm going to send politicians to save you. I'm going to raise up politicians to save you. It only takes one bite for this deformity to begin. When once the lifeblood of Christ coursed through the arteries of the called out community, now we're finding something else entirely. The politics have found their way beneath our skin. Politics. They fed on our faith, infested our focus. They feed on our spirits, gorging themselves on the red wine of grace until what remains is not ecclesia, but something hollow, something drained, a politic community with a church-like facade. The politic gorges itself on the church's vitality, leaving it hollow, but the Lamb invites us to gorge ourselves on Him, on His grace, His truth, the Lamb sacrifice, which fills us to overflowing. The moment, and I want to emphasize this, the moment politics enters the church, these many ticks, become parasites of the soul. They insinuate their venom into our walk with Jesus, sapping our spirit of compassion and mercy with their insatiable hunger for power, for position, for the illusion of control, justice, and the need to be right. They promise influence but deliver infection. They promise platforms, but they offer only poison. They turn disciples into demographics. They turn worship into warfare. When you weaponize worship on the basis of politics, it's heresy. They convert sanctuaries into campaign headquarters. They make you forget that your citizenship is not of this world, that your allegiance belongs to a kingdom that laughs at the pretensions of earthly politics and calls us to biblical politics. The politics plague doesn't just infect our blood, it rewrites our liturgy. Watch how the infected genuflect before their platforms. With a reverence they've forgotten to offer the Prince of Peace. Listen as they recite their political creeds with a fervor that puts the Apostles' Creed to shame, their voices rising in righteous indignation over party platforms while remaining silent during Sunday morning confessions. They gather in sacred circles, not around common communion tables, but around cable news altars, partaking not of bread and wine, but of talking points and partisan wine that turns their hearts to vinegar. Their calendars become political prayer books, marked not by seasons of Advent and Lent and Pentecost, but by primaries and elections. They tie their time and treasure not to the kingdom, but to campaigns, to causes. Their evangelism becomes a door-to-door mission, not for the gospel, but for the grand old party or the great opposition. I mean, you got politicians out there doing door-to-door, campaign workers, door-to-door evangelism. You can't get church people to even think about going door-to-door to talk about Jesus, but we'll go door-to-door to talk about our candidate. The politics parasite is a master liturgist. It doesn't destroy worship, it redirects it. It doesn't silence prayers, it changes their direction. And before we know it, we're bowing our knees to donkeys and elephants while the Lamb of God watches from the margins, waiting for us to remember the only political party that matters is the wedding feast, where all are invited to dance. In contrast, the politics of Jesus is not about domination, but transfiguration. His politics disrupt without destroying. They convict without condemning, heal without humiliating. It's not about left or right, it's about resurrection. And God's government and governance is the governance of grace. Power is made perfect in weakness, and thrones are built not from swords, but from towels and trowels. So, what will it be? The politics of Jesus biblical politics, or politics. Here's the difference. Jesus' politics washes feet. Politics climbs ladders. Jesus' politics feed enemies. Politics devour opponents. Jesus' politics dies for others. Politics kill others' reputations. One builds bridges, politics builds walls. One speaks truth in love, the other speaks truth as a weapon. One seeks the lost, the other seeks the vote. One multiplies loaves, the other divides crumbs. One turns water into wine, politics turns wine to vinegar. So which will it be? Jesus' campaign slogan, come and die. Politics' campaign slogan, come and conquer. And to the victor belongs the spoils. Jesus' platform is a cross. Politics' platform is a throne. Jesus' constituency, the least of these. Politics' constituency, the most of these, especially the billionaires. Jesus' victory, resurrection. Politics' victory, re-election. Politics creates political disciples instead of Jesus' disciples. We have churches now that are more segregated by politics than by anything else. Politics makes campaign promises of a candidate instead of the covenant promises of the kingdom. Politics makes us evangelists for parties rather than witnesses to the person of Christ. We are called to love the city to which God has called us. Here's Jeremiah 29:7, where the prophet Jeremiah writes to the Israelites in exile in Babylon, instructing them to seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. And Jesus cried over Jerusalem. His tears reveal the depth of his love for the city, that zip code, its people. He didn't weep over its politics or governance, but over its spiritual blindness and the consequences that would follow from its waywardness. And so too the church. We're called to love our community, to love our zip code, the love that's rooted in the heart of God. Yet all too often we get caught up in the politics of the city, the politics plague, and forget to weep over the blindness and lostness of those around us. We need to rediscover the zip code of our community, to know its people, its struggles, and its needs, and to love it with the love of Christ. When we do, we'll find ourselves not just crying over our city, but crying out for the city, just as Jeremiah did. Our love for the city is a love rooted in the heart of God, and the call of God to love our neighbor, not in the fleeting allegiances of politics or the partisan divides that seek to claim us for their own. And so do the people in our community know that we care? Do the late night workers at the 24-hour pharmacy, the Waffle House masters of scattered, smothered, and covered hash browns that you can order 24/7, the early risers at the local coffee shop, or the sandwich artists at the subway that seem to be the last ones with the lights on in our neighborhood, do they know that they're loved and valued by the body of Christ? That's biblical politics. Or are we, like the priest and the Levite in Jesus' parable, passing by on the other side, too caught up in our own religious routines and political causes to notice the needs of those around us? As the church, we have the chance to be the hands and feet of Jesus to the subway workers who serve us, to the baristas who pour our coffee, to the nurses who care for us when we're sick, to those who set our bones. But will they see the love of Christ in us? Or will we just be another customer, another face in the crowd, judging them based on whether they're red or blue? We're so caught up in our political differences that we've lost sight of what it means to love our neighbors, even to love our own family, because they might differ politically from our politics. I know of a small island community where a pizza shop owner was boycotted by locals simply because of his political views. It's a place where restaurants struggle to stay open year-round. I mean, serving a tight-knit community that should be supporting its own. But instead of rallying around a business that provides affordable meals 20 round the year, not just opening in the summer and being open and closing in the winter, but they're struggling to provide a community with a service and a good pizza year-round. The community turned on its own because they didn't like his politics. The irony is stark, a village fragmenting over politics even as it deprives itself of a valuable resource called pizza. This is the politics plague in action. A disease that infects even the body of Christ, causing us to prioritize party loyalty over the simple act of loving our neighbor and caring for them. The way of Jesus is not the avoidance of politics, but its transfiguration. His is a cruciform politic, one that breaks bread instead of breaking spirits. In him, we're invited not to party platforms, but to a banquet table. Jesus doesn't cancel his enemies, he dies for them. His agenda is love, and his campaign is the cross, and there is another way. Jesus is the antidote for restoring the called out life. He is the Lord of the dance. In the wild, untamed winds of true and surrendering grace, politics cannot survive. Their grip loosens when we remember who we are, not voters first, but lovers of the one who calls us out of darkness into his marvelous light. Not citizens of red states or blue states, red cities or blue cities, but ambassadors of a kingdom that transcends all earthly colors. The politics venom seeks to mimic life, but only the lamb's blood shed, not taken, is the true antidote, purifying the body's bloodstream and invigorating the soul. Where the tick's bite brings the debilitating ache of Lyme disease, a true lamb infection brings the vibrant health of divine life, restoring agile limbs for service and a clear mind to receive Christ's truth. The Ecclesia exists not to endorse candidates, but to embody Christ. Can I say that again? Your church exists not to endorse candidates, but to embody Christ. Not to win elections, but to witness to the eternal, to everyone, whether you agree with them or not, whether you like them or not. The church exists not to manage the city, but to manifest the city that is to come. And this is the great liberation. When we truly understand our calling as the Ecclesia, we are free to love our neighbors without needing to control them. We're free to serve our communities without being enslaved by their politics. We're free to dance in the wild winds of grace while others crawl about infected by this politics craze. So I ask you, as the one who's a traveler to another on this narrow way, have you felt that bite of the politics? Have you noticed the symptoms of the politics infestation creeping into your spiritual bloodstream or the bloodstream of your church? The shortness of breath when speaking of Jesus to those who vote differently, the quickening pulse when kingdom priorities conflict with party platforms, the growing coldness toward brothers and sisters who refuse to pledge allegiance to your chosen earthly cause? Are you kidding me? But if you've been infected, take heart. The great physician still makes house calls. And the antidote is as close as your next breath, as near as your willingness to remember that you are called out, called up, called into a dance that politics can never stop. The wild winds of grace are blowing. So will you take the hand of Jesus and dance God's dance of redemption and restoration and resurrection, or will you yield your soul to the tick and lie in the valley of bones? The music still plays. Will you dance or will you tick? You can't escape the politics of this world, but you can decide which kingdom you'll embody. So you can be shaped by the parasite or the Prince of Peace. One drains you, the other resurrects you. One divides, the other invites. One ticks toward midnight, the other ticks toward dawn. I picture, as I look out, a church once bitten, now twirling in the Spirit's winds, its scars glowing with the light of resurrection. Which will it be? The politics of the world or the politics of the Lamb? My reflections on the church and politics.